Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable.
Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake.
A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome to a Last Round special episode. Today we have multiple world challenger and decorated amateur, BJ Flores. Thanks for joining us, BJ.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it, Mike.
So how things have been going during the coronavirus for you?
Chilling, we've been training. I haven't really paid too much attention to what's going on everywhere else. We've been in Calabasas, California's training, sparring, we have a private gym and everything out there. So we've just been, really taking advantage of the time that we probably wouldn't have had without the pandemic. So it's been a good opportunity for Jake to really, get serious about his boxing career and just, focus and train and do 2-a-days. So that's really all we've done for the last 11 months.
So obviously you're working with Jake Paul. How did that link up come about?
A mutual friend of ours, someone who was helping in the camp, invited me into camp as a sparring partner. And I came in, we sparred a couple times, and then I just started, working with him on the mitts and helping him out, doing stuff to, just improve his technique. He didn't have an amateur career, and he's just kind of learning on the go. And he's a really tough kid, but I just saw like some things that he can improve on with his punching. And, obviously when someone's beginning, there's a lot of things you got to work on, and just helping him through my, 17-year professional career to kind of like some of the things that I learned over the course of time, showing him in the beginning to help, get him ahead of the curve. So we started working together, had a good chemistry, and here we are almost a year later.
Originally, you were working alongside Shane Mosley, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
How was that working alongside such a legend as Shane?
Amazing. I mean, it's just obviously you can't say enough about Shane. He's a great, one of my favorite fighters growing up. A very smart, sharp, multiple time world champion. Just, the intangibles that Shane had in the ring, the body punching, just everything you'd ever want in a fighter. And, just a great guy. It was great working alongside him, and, Jake appreciates it. And Jake really, took a lot from that, Shane putting his name behind Jake, and that was big for Jake and gave him a lot of confidence in the beginning. So, that was fantastic.
When you first came into camp, what did you expect, and did he surprise you?
Yeah, he surprised me. I didn't expect him to be taking it seriously. He took it, and Shane obviously brought an element of that seriousness. And then once I got there, I added to teaching him how to be professional in your daily preparation. What needs to happen in the morning, in the middle of the day. You're resting between training sessions. We're doing 2 every day. We're our constant goal. We're all on the same page. We're all working towards the same thing. Every single action we take during the day is working towards the fight night. So Jake took to that really well, and he worked really hard. And I think I was surprised at how good of an athlete he was. I didn't expect him to be, 6 foot, 200 pounds, and deadlift 450 and run a 11-second 100-meter dash and 5-minute miles. And I didn't expect that at all. I just thought he was a kind of a YouTube kid that was going to try to do this for a little while. But I didn't realize like how athletically talented he was. And I think that's a big misconception that people have no idea about, that they're going to be shocked.
What have you taken from, previous coaches that you've worked with that you now use?
Just a little bit from everybody. Kenny Adams, he pretty much started my father and myself in boxing. He was the 1988 Olympic head coach for Team USA. And when me and my older brother were, 7, 8, 9 years old, we were in the gym in the Army. My dad was in the Army stationed in Fort Hood, Texas. He'd bring us to the gym all the time, and we'd go watch the guys like Kennedy McKinney, Andrew Maynard, Ray Mercer, all those Army guys that were there training all over the place, and in Fort Hood, Texas, that went on to be Olympians and world champions, and just kind of grew up watching those guys. I take a lot from Kenny Adams, a lot of different funny things he would say in the gym, and just a funny, hardcore military guy to be around. Then, Buddy McGirt had a very different philosophy. He was more laid back. He was more chill, but he gave clear, concise instructions. He was very, very clear on what he'd say. Danny Smith, another good trainer I had, trained Fernando Vargas for 4 or 5 of his fights. So I got to be in camp for those fights. A more laid back, chill guy, but excellent mitt guy. He really got you in and a good rhythm on the mitts. And I felt like, to me, that was something that really helped me in my fights. I felt like I was at my sharpest whenever I was able to work mitts consistently. And that's something I do with Jake a lot. I do a lot of mitt work with Jake because I create fight type situations and circumstances with the mitt work that he can't get unless he's sparring. So I take a little bit from everybody. They're all great trainers. And I just try to, do the things that I felt helped me the most to Jake.
I thought it was quite kind of funny and also clever that you actually covered the surveillance cameras in the gym. So everything is, top secret. Nothing can get leaked out because obviously, if anything happened to Jake, he got dropped or had a bad day, that would be all over the internet.
Well, the cameras aren't covered anymore. And I can assure you that hasn't happened. People are going to be surprised. He's been sparring with Rob Safar, 10-0, a very, very, very good up-and-coming light heavyweight. Ahmed Iliobi, 20-1. His only loss was to Jean Pascal, Hasim Rahman Jr., J. Leon Love, Kevin Newman. I mean, he's sparring with everybody, and he's I haven't babied him at all. He's been in there tough. So I've been really impressed with his effort and his ability to hold his own with these guys. Working on his fundamentals and his technique. I'm kind of like an old school guy as far as what it takes to be a successful boxer. I feel like, if you go back to the amateurs and the fundamentals of boxing, the straight left jab and the taunts and feints are two of the most important things you could ever show of a young fighter. And that's really all I did with Jake when I started, is learning and teaching him how to create distance with his left jab, how to taunt, feint with it, how to work his left jab to the body and the head. Very, very valuable for a big man to be able to do that, to work your jab up and down, to keep the distance, and to use it as a tool and not just to set as a weapon and not just to set up your other combinations. So he's grasped that really well, and everything's coming off his left jab very nicely.
Have you had any thoughts about, going a full-time trainer afterwards?
Mm-mm. I'm just going to train Jake and see how it goes. I don't really have, it was just the perfect situation for me and for him. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So I'm not saying I'm going to be a full-time trainer and all this other stuff. I don't know. I got some real estate stuff going on, and the commentating is getting ready to start back up again next month for the Impact Network. We'll have 2 shows a month, and the Olympics we'll be doing next year, and that'll be, almost a full month of my time. So I can't really dedicate or say exactly what if I'm going to train more fighters besides Jake. This has just been kind of a fun project, and he's been really good. And, we have some big plans, myself and Jake, for the next 2 or 3 years. So I'm kind of all out of time right now.
Looking in some of the interviews, for this, obviously he's fighting Nate Robinson on the 28th. And then it looks like you're trying to get a fight with KSI and then maybe even Dylan Dennis in MMA afterwards. Is that right?
I mean, if KSI fights him, I'll be surprised if he fights him, honestly. Hold on a second. I just see that? Hold the cup with the teeth while I open the door. That was good. I don't know. We'll see if those fights get made. Jake wants to make those fights, but that doesn't mean they'll necessarily get made. But Jake would love to fight KSI. KSI would love to talk about fighting Jake, but I don't know if he'd actually love to fight Jake. Dylan Dennis. Another guy who just kind of gets online and just talks all the time. Hasn't really done much, but he's got a big name. So, Jake would have no problem fighting him at all if everything was right.
Is there beef between those two, or is that just someone that Jake looks at and thinks that, he can beat?
He can beat him, and he will beat him. He's going to beat the dog shit out of him when they fight. But Dylan's always trying to create, beef and stuff like that. But, I don't really try not to get involved too much. I'll read these comments on these stories, these guys, things they say. And, I come from a different era where, people, when they said something, they actually did fight, and they didn't, they didn't just talk about it online and all this kind of stuff. So it's been a hard, adjustment for me, because I see people talking and saying stuff, and I'm like, look, show up at the gym and do it. And then I realize that then 10 sites will make an entire story about that, and it's just ridiculous. So I've had to pull myself back a little bit from how I respond. But if these guys will fight, if they'll fight Jake, cool. If not, then there's going to be plenty of other names. But those are a couple names that Jake has definitely mentioned, and we'll see if they take the fights.
Somebody else that seems to be calling you and Jake out is Joe Fournier from the UK. I saw David Hay talking about that he put a $2 million bet, $1 million with you and $1 million with Jake for the fight.
Yeah, he said something like that. But that doesn't really interest me that much. Jake's already making, his own money on the side without betting anything. And, Joe is not really the right type of guy for Jake right now. Jake's team has kind of got the next few opponents kind of mapped out who they want. And Joe didn't fit the profile. So nothing against Joe. I like Joe personally. He's a good guy. I think he's barking up the wrong tree. He really is. But I think he's a good guy. He works hard. He stays in shape. He's a great businessman. And I got a lot of respect for Joe. But, that fight, I don't think was ever too serious.
I saw you were doing some pads with Sean Merriman, who's looking at going into MMA. Are you training him, or was that just a one-off?
That was one time. He came up to Big Bear. He's friends with Shane. Shane Mosley. He came up to watch some sparring with Jake, and he's a buddy of mine. I kind of, I was a big fan of Sean, at San Diego and at Maryland, actually, where he played his college ball. And I've met him a few times in Vegas, like maybe 5-6 years ago, and we've always been kind of close. So it just worked out. He's got a little stable of MMA guys, and he actually brought a couple of guys in to help Jake spar and get ready for the last fight. And he's just an asset, a big help. Super good guy. In
doing research for this interview, obviously one of the first things I did was put your name into Google, and up popped a video of Charlie Zelenoff calling you out. We had Kelly Pavlek on sometime earlier this year, and he was telling us about how Zelenoff actually managed to get his phone number and called him at home. So has Charlie ever done that? Has he ever done that to you?
Yeah, he did. He called me at home, and I just, what did I tell him? Honestly, look, I'm not a hard guy to find. Like, I told him where I was at, and I told him anytime he wants to come, show up. I'm not going out of my way for him, of course, but if he comes to me anytime, I really would. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but I'm 41. I will. If Charlie showed up somewhere where I was at and wanted to, find out and put the little gloves on and find out, I would do it anytime. So I don't like bullies. I don't like guys going into gyms and beating people up and all that. And he's just he's nothing. So just like, I don't know, but it'd just be funny, I guess. But I would never go out of my way for a guy like that ever. But if he ever showed up somewhere, I would have no problem.
Next week, we have the big heavyweight clash. We have Alexander Usyk stepping up to heavyweight for the second fight against Derek Chisora. Right. Obviously, great person to get the opinion because you did the same thing. You went from cruiserweight up to heavyweight. Yep. What was the major steps for you to try and overcome? Because obviously, some of the heavyweights are giants now. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, AJ. The 6'7", 6'9".
Yeah, I think we just got to look at what Usyk is going to face in Chisora and not so much the other guys, because he's got a real test in front of him with Chisora. Chisora's on a nice little hot streak right now. Even in his KO loss to Dillian White, he was winning that fight before it happened. He got caught. Dillian's a big puncher. Chisora has been, I think, ever since he got with David, I really do. I feel like it's kind of ignited his career, and he feels like he's got support, and he feels like he's got a championship team now. And, from what I've seen of him, he looks tough. He's a tough guy to, keep off you for 10 or 12 rounds. So is the fight with Usyk 10 or 12?
It's 12.
Okay. Those are tough waters for Usyk that he's never really experienced, that he's about to experience firsthand with those little gloves. It's not like sparring. And it's not like anything you can experience in training. And Derek's a load. Usyk is going to have to be very, very sharp. And I don't know if Usyk's got the power to be able to keep Derek off him for 12 rounds. I feel like Derek eventually will get to him. And a big thing that's going to be a big factor in that fight is what weight Derek comes in at. If he comes in at like 270 or 265, or it's going to be tougher for him. But if he comes in lighter, where he's a little quicker on his feet and he's able to move around a little bit, I think Usyk's going to have his hands full.
What do you think? How do you think the no crowd will affect Chisora? Because he fought in Monaco in that little casino and he didn't have a good performance, and he kind of blows hot and cold because he brings quite a large crowd.
I don't think it'll affect him. He's a professional. He's been doing it for a long time. He's been in with some of the best guys ever, and I think he's at a point in his career now where he knows how important a victory over Usyk is for his career and for his team. So I don't think he needs any extra motivation. I think he'll be up for it and he'll be ready.
Do you think Usyk needs an impressive performance after his, first fight against Witherspoon?
No. I just feel like Usyk just needs to win. If he wins, it'll be impressive, whether he knocks Chisora out, which I think is between slim and none of that happening. But, if he boxes him nice and looks sharp, obviously it's a plus. But any win in this fight, the winner is taking huge steps forward. and the loser will have to get back in line. And we'll see what it remains to be seen on that. But whoever wins this fight, there's going to be something very, very, very big for them in the next 6 to 12 months.
Do you think that kind of Miranda-ing, come forward style is going to work for Chisora? Because a few people have kind of compared it to Maidana against Floyd. Obviously, Floyd still won that fight, but Maidana did really well by just kind of like being on his chest and just not letting him breathe.
I mean, Usyk doesn't move like Floyd, that's for sure. Floyd was a little older at that point too, where he wasn't moving quite like he was at 130 and 135 and 140 and 147 earlier in his career. When he's fighting Oscar, it wasn't the same Floyd that fought Maidana. There's no question about that. I was sitting ringside for the first Maidana fight with Floyd, and there's just not a chance in hell anybody could possibly give one of the first 5 rounds to Floyd. Maidana was all over him. And I remember sitting there ringside thinking to myself, I'm like, man, Floyd's for sure losing this fight. There's no way he's going to win. Maidana was really putting on him the first 5 rounds. And then, just the toughness I saw from Floyd, and he started to suck it up a little bit the 6th round, the 7th round. And he wasn't winning those rounds by much, the ones he was winning. And I think some of the close rounds also went to Floyd. And Maidana had a legitimate case, like in the first fight, that he could easily won that fight. Another person that got to Floyd was Jose Luis Castillo. He was on his chest. He outlanded him by almost double the power punches. And I think, Chisora, obviously it's a heavyweight fight, so it's different. You can't do what the guys at 135 do, or when he fought Castillo, and 147 when he fought Maidana. But I think Chisora could take a page out of that book and, really watch those things and what those guys did to cut off those great champions. And that's really the only way Chisora is going to be able to win. But I know he's got that mentality. I talk to David, every few weeks, and he says that Chisora's on the right track and he's ready to make history.
If Usyk comes through this, how do you think he would do against the bigger heavyweights, the Furies, the Wilders, and the AJs? He's given away, size and weight.
I mean, I think he'll do good against anybody. He's tough. I mean, he's a rough customer for anybody. He's experienced. He's got a lot of fights. He's been in with a lot of top guys. Like I think Chisora is a tough night out for anybody. There's no easy night with Chisora. So I think the guy that would probably have not an easy time, but the easiest time would be Tyson Fury, just because he could use his height and his reach, and he's got the best boxing ability from the outside. I think everybody else has a tough night with Chisora. Everybody. Wilder, I think Chisora beats Wilder. I really do. I think AJ has a very tough time with Chisora as well. But just AJ's also got concussive power. Another kid coming up who's going to be really tough and really dangerous for a lot of guys that nobody knows is a guy named Frank Sanchez. Very, very, very good guy, Cuban guy. Mike Borrell manages him and advises him, and he's a dangerous guy. I've been seeing him for a long time, and that's a kid that fights in a couple of weeks, who's also going to be making a name for himself very soon in that scene, and he's a monster. So some good heavyweights right now coming up, and just an exciting time for that division.
He's still in the Canelo camp?
Yeah, he is. Him training with Eddie Reynoso is just it's a bad combination for his opponents. I mean, Eddie Reynoso is very, very good at that style that he teaches, and you see the improvements with Ryan Garcia. Obviously, you've seen the development of Canelo since he was 17 years old, and what Eddie's implemented at Canelo in his camp. And obviously, Frank Sanchez training over there in that camp. I mean, he's going to be a nasty guy, and he was already nasty before he started. So it's a huge step in the right direction.
Another question I'd like to put to you, obviously being a fighter, trainer, judges' scorecards in the last few weeks have kind of been all over the place. We had one in the UK, the Lewis Ritson fight, where the away fighter Vasquez really should have won, but Ritson got the home decision. Can you just tell us, what do you think they could do with the judges' scorecards? Do you think going to 5 judges to try to water them down would help?
Just post the scores after the round, so each judge has to be held accountable for what they're scoring. You know what I mean? And that way you can kind of see like what judges are kind of going off. And I think whenever there's one judge that's way off of the different two, the other 2 judges consistently, you gotta not let them work anymore. That's it. Like, they need to realize when they turn in these bogus scorecards that they will not be allowed back, and they are changing people's lives for the worse. My thing is, I don't care who wins as long as the right person wins. Like, you don't want to, even as a fighter, like some of my friends that I've had be in tough fights that they just didn't win. And I was okay with the other guy winning. You know what I mean? Because you work too hard as a fighter to not get the nod when you deserve the nod. So I understand when it's a close fight, and I understand that kind of thing. But we're talking about blatant robberies like that last week. And then I don't know which other one you were going to talk about, but the 119-109 card on Lomachenko Lopez. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like Julie Letterman, I mean, I don't know. She's the new Adelaide Bird, I guess. I'm not sure. That's just Adelaide Bird would just consistently turn in scorecards that were just completely different than everyone else. And just seems like she was watching a different fight. Like the scorecard was filled out before the fight started. So that's all I can say on that. They shouldn't be allowed to continue turning in those kind of scores. One time like that, and there should be a ban or suspension. And then a second time like that, they're no longer allowed to be a judge. Simple.
Obviously, the scorecards affect your career, which affects your pay. Do you have any examples? They don't have to be you, but just people that you know who have had substantial drops in pay due to losing a fight.
It's funny you asked that because I was in the airport the other day and I had someone come up to me and said, "Hey, you were robbed in that Shumenov fight. You were really robbed in that fight." And it's that fight happened July 25th of 2015. And to have people come up to me still, 5 years later, over 5 years later, and come up to me in the airport and still say, "Hey, look, you were robbed in that fight." Looking back on the fight and watching it now in hindsight, now that it's 5 years past, I still don't see how I lost it. I outlanded him in 9 of the 12 rounds, and then all 3 judges had me losing 8 rounds before. So I chased him around the ring. I outlanded him in 9 of the 12 rounds, and he was a very good boxer. He was very tough, and maybe I didn't cut the ring off like I should have cut the ring off against him, but I was still landing way harder, cleaner shots. So that's one thing that I was guaranteed to. I had I think a $750,000 guarantee on my next fight if I won that fight, and it really, really set me back. And that was a tough one for me to swallow. And $750, it's not going to make you rich, but it's life changing money. Especially if I would have lost, clean in a world championship fight to a world champion. Hey, no shame in that, no problem. I did everything I could. I tried my best, and it didn't work out, and it wasn't my night. But to outland him in 9 of the 12 rounds, and then we were all sure that we're just waiting the decision. I was like, this is my day. Finally, yes, I'm finally going to win a world title at 36 years old. And I wasn't even in my prime at 36. I think my prime was probably about 28 to about 33, 34. But I was like, man, better late than never. I'll have all these conversations with myself until the scorecards came out. And then when they came out, all 3 judges had me losing 8-4. I just couldn't believe it. It's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And at that point, I was just like, man, that's unbelievable. And you saw that consistently with Shumenov. You saw other guys like Campillo a couple years before really give it to Shumenov, and Shumenov still get the decision. And you got to knock the guy out, I guess. I don't know what the ties are, but there's definitely some weird ties going on there to where he always wins fights that he probably shouldn't win. So there's a lot of other examples besides that, but just personally, that's the only one I personally have that really really greatly affected my career. And after that fight, he didn't fight for 2 more years. And I was ready to fight the best and the top guys, later in my career. But still, I was ready to fight him. And what's he do? He takes the belt and he goes into hibernation for 2 years. And, I'm begging for fight. I'm like, look, I'll fight this guy. I'll fight that guy. But I didn't have a title. So they didn't really want to fight me. I was still a rough contender at that point in my life. And they didn't really want to fight me unless I was a mandatory or unless I had a belt. So it was tough for me to get those tough fights unless I went overseas. So.
How does it work state to state on you being able to kind of refuse a certain judge or a referee?
You really don't have control. The commission chooses that. So on a world championship fight, they let your management know who the judges are. And if you have any concerns or anything you want to bring up, then you're allowed to bring that up, which I think is a good tool and a good asset. But, normally in any other fights I had, like I wasn't really too worried about the referees. I was trying to knock those guys out. And I wasn't really worried about, who the judges were because, I felt like I was going to win by knockout. But it is what it is. When I was in the UK, when I fought Tony Bellew, I was up. All 3 judges gave me the first 2 rounds even the UK judges were giving me rounds over there until the low blow in the 3rd round. But that's nothing I couldn't really control it, so I didn't worry about it too much. I just kind of let things work out how they did.
BJ, what's your opinion on all the different titles, all the different alphabet belts, and the WBA having like 4 or 5, supposed world champions all in the same division?
It's just too watered down. People just it's a money industry. That, and whenever there's money to be made, sanctioning bodies are going to come up with more and more. We can call it trinkets if we want. ways for them to make sanctioning fees, which I understand. They're trying to obviously grow their company and make business sense, and the only way that happens is if they're making money. So it's just too much. It is what it is, but you can't recognize all those guys as world champions.
Obviously, Jake has the fight on the November 28th, the Mike Tyson Roy Jones Jr. card. We've had some other boxers, come back recently. Sergio Martinez, Chris Bird's talked about coming back. Oscar De La Hoya is talked about coming back. What's your opinion on everybody returning to the ring?
I think, fighters go through different phases where, they want to fight, they want to be done. 6 months later, they might want to fight again. It's just, I have no opinion on somebody if they want to choose to get back in the ring and do the work and go through the process and do what it takes to be ready to get back in the ring again. Who am I to say they can't do it? Would I bet on that fighter if they're going to go in a tough fight? No, but does that mean that I should be allowed to say, hey, they shouldn't do it or they should do it? I mean, I think people should do whatever makes them happy. And if that's what Oscar needs, and if that's what Chris Bird needs, and if that's what Sergio needs, and it's tough, when you're a fighter and you're fighting in front of, millions of people on TV all the time, and then you go to retirement life where you're like, look, you're not having those massive adrenaline rushes like you used to have all the time in your daily life. You just feel like something's missing. And you feel like sometimes the only way you can get that back is by returning to the ring. But you got to remember that Father Time is undefeated. So that's the main thing to me is my health. And I feel like with my real estate and my other, business opportunities, there's plenty to keep me busy with, especially with training Jake now. It takes a lot of time. But I feel like, if guys had other hobbies outside of boxing that were fulfilling to them, I feel like there'd be less fighters trying to come back after they know they're not at their best anymore.
When I put your name into BoxRec, it came up saying you're still enrolled in VADA until October 2021. Is
Sure.
there a chance we could see you back?
Mm-mm. I've been offered a lot of opportunities already to come back, and I'm just not interested, honestly. If I'm not fighting for world titles and I'm not able to compete at my highest level, my best level, I'm not interested, honestly. You don't play boxing, and it's a sport where, there's no question I can go out there and beat some guys right now. The heavyweight, at cruiserweight, whatever. Exactly. I like that shirt. I got to get one of those. But it's just not. It's not my thing. If I can't fight the best guys and be competitive, then I'd rather train somebody who I think has got a shot to go. And it's more fulfilling to me that way.
After Jake fulfills these upcoming fights, is there a chance that we'll actually see him in with some pros once he gets a few kind of lesser known people in there?
I mean, there's always a chance. I'm not going to say there's not a chance. I think the more realistic thing is Jake's got a hit list of some guys that he wants to fight. And then after that, we're going to see him in with some UFC guys that have big names in the boxing ring. I think that's more the direction. I don't think we're going to see him in there with, Artur Beterbiev. I don't think we're going to see him in there with, those kind of guys. I don't. But he's got his guys that he wants to fight that make sense for him, and guys that he's got some, beef with or whatever. And then there's going to be some UFC guys that are going to come to the boxing ring, and they're going to think, hey, I'm going to, go in there and really do a deal, do a number on this little YouTube kid, and they're going to be in for a rude awakening. It's going to be funny.
We've got some good fights coming up towards the end of the year. Coming up, Gervonta Davis against Leo Santa Cruz.
Yep.
How do you see that one going?
We'll be there. I'll be in San Antonio for that fight, October 31st. God, this camera, I don't know why I can't figure it out. There we go. I think it depends on how Tank made weight. If he's been at weight and he's okay, a lot of the things I've seen out of him in the Mayweather gym, he's always in a sweatsuit every time I see him. Every training session, he's always in a sweatsuit. And I just find it, very odd that somebody could possibly train their entire camp in a sweatsuit, losing water weight every single day and get down to a certain weight, and then have to continue to lose weight and just still have energy and power to fight the next day. I just don't see how it works. I feel like nowadays a lot of people are a lot more intelligent. They're a lot more smart and intelligent on how the right way is to make weight, and sweatsuits is not the right way to make it. Calorie decrease, different types of foods, tons of hydration. Those are the right ways to lose weight with, obviously with proper macros and nutrients and everything like that. But just the sweatsuit every day is not the answer. It's more the old school way. And I think Tank's been doing that for about a month and a half. So we'll see how he made weight. There's one thing making weight, and there's another thing how you make weight. When I fought Tony Bellew in the UK, Yeah, I made weight, but I didn't really make weight the right way. In the UK, our weigh-in was Friday, and they made me weigh on Wednesday 205 pounds, and I didn't find out about that until Tuesday night. So they said for the commission, 2 days before the weigh-in, you have to weigh 205. Instead, I was like 210. So I had to go in the sauna that night, get off, and get down to 205. So I weighed 205.2 the next day. And they're like, okay, that's fine. I go eat, I drink, I do everything, I rehydrate. But making weight more than one time is difficult. They come back to me later that same day and said, oh, by the way, you were 205.2. You didn't make 205. Even though we told you 205.2 was going to be okay, this wasn't even the official weigh-in. This was a separate weigh-in that they wanted to do just to make sure I was close on my weight. And then because I wasn't 205 on the dot, instead I was 205.2, they made me weigh in again the next day, Thursday, at 205. So I had to make weight again on Thursday. And then on top of that, once I made 205, then I made 204.8. Then I had to go weigh in 200 again on Friday. And these are the kind of things that like people never know or never find out about that are just, I mean, they really affect how a fighter is able to perform. I mean, I've never had to make weight 205 2 days before the weigh-in. It doesn't make any sense. Why would I have to do that? I shouldn't. But for some reason, the commission over there said that I had to make weight 3 days. And we're over in another country where this is crazy. Like, so it greatly matters how he made the weight. If he made it the right way, how he'll be able to perform. I think he's going to be dangerous for Leo Santa Cruz, regardless. For the first 4 or 5 rounds, going to be very dangerous. But down the stretch, Santa Cruz will have a chance if he gets past that first 4 or 5 rounds. If Tank didn't make weight the right way.
Last week was actually the 4-year anniversary of your fight with Tony Bellew.
Yeah.
Has he made friends with you now? Has he calmed down now?
No, I don't talk to him. He sent me a Twitter message after the fight, and I didn't respond to it. I just didn't say anything, and it's whatever. Tony's someone that I respect as a fighter. I'm sure he's a great guy personally. We never really saw eye to eye, and that's fine. And he had a great career, and he did a lot of great things in the boxing ring, and I respect his career. And he beat David after me, and I just wish I would have gotten an opportunity. Like if you go back and you watch the fight with me and Tony, and you watch the first 2 rounds, and you watch when the first knockdown happened. Like I mean, it's just not even, and it's just amazing to me, like how nobody ringside even said one mention about it. Like I worked for NBC for 7 years, like. I'm calling the action how I see it. I don't care what anybody else is saying. I'm calling the action how I see it. And just, there wasn't even any mention of it. Nothing. Nobody said one thing about it. And then after the fight, everybody said everything about it. But the commentators didn't say anything. I just couldn't believe it. And I just wish I could have had an opportunity to fight Tony on a level playing field. And whether win, lose, or draw, I could live with that. But it just was the way it happened. It always irks me. So, it is what it is. I'm over it now, but it's just like, in a world championship fight, anything can happen. You can win, lose, you can get knocked out, you can go to the distance, whatever it is. But just as long as you have a level playing field and it's properly officiated, I could live with whatever happened. You know what I mean? And that's a tough one for me to get over. So
I think everybody was surprised that you actually managed to beat David Haye.
Yeah, I think we all were on that. But David had a couple injuries. And I think the fight David would have beat him was the first fight, but he didn't. It was Tony's night. David had an Achilles snap. And in the second round, I was sitting in the front row when it happened, and I saw it. And the fact that David was able to sit in there with that injury like that and fight until the 11th round, they finally stopped it. It was amazing to me. I think David made a lot of fans that night because nobody ever seen like David in that type of adversity. And a lot of people were able to kind of relate to David and level with David after that fight. And, David went to the drawing board and had surgery and went back and trained and everything and just father time and caught up with him. And it was Tony's night again. So, got to give Tony credit for both those wins.
Another big fight we have before the end of the year, Ryan Garcia, Luke Campbell. Ryan Garcia's first real big step up. Man, and boy, is it a step up. It really, really is. So, I watched Luke Campbell in the 2012 Olympics, and I did the commentary for on NBC for the American fighters, and that was a kid I was always kind of impressed with. I don't necessarily feel like he won
every single one of those fights leading up to that gold medal contest. He had a couple really close fights that he got the benefit of the doubt on in a UK Olympics. He did really well. But I was very impressed with him. I thought he was very talented. And anytime you face the type of fighter with a pedigree like Luke Campbell, you're going to be in for a long night unless you score the knockout. And I love Ryan, and I hope he I hope he wins. I really do. But he's going to have his hands full. And it's a real test for Ryan. And if I was a betting man, which I am, the smart money I think is on Luke Campbell, but Ryan's definitely got that equalizer the power. So, but Luke Campbell I think is the smarter bet. He's been battle tested. He's been in with way better guys, but I mean that doesn't mean Ryan can't raise up and win this fight. But it's just this will be the first time he's done it.
Someone I'm sure you know very well, Devin Haney against Gamboa is another one to close out the year.
Yeah, Devin, I'm a little disappointed in that fight. I really am. And it's not because Gamboa is not a great fighter. He is. He's just not at a point in his career now where Devin is. He's much smaller. He's moving up in weight. He's been inactive. Just for those reasons, I'm disappointed a little bit in this fight. But, Devin's a great champion. Some people are hesitant to call him a champion yet because he really didn't, win the title in the ring, I guess. People say he hasn't really beat one of the other champions to become champion. But the way he lives and the way he trains makes him a champion to me. Devin's a champion. Devin will be a champion, whether he goes through whoever he's got to go through. The way he lives his life, he's just a good kid. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke. He's focused all the time. He's always training. His focus is always on his boxing. He's just a Bernard Hopkins-esque type of fighter with that mentality, lifestyle. I love Devin Haney. So, I love the kid. I'm not super excited about the fight, but it's another good step for Devin. He can fight somebody a bigger name after that, hopefully. Because there's a lot of guys in that 135-pound division now that there's some pretty exciting matchups.
Another one we should hopefully see next year. It's not obviously been official yet. Josh Taylor against Jose Ramirez.
Man, that's going to be a great fight, isn't it? How impressive is Josh Taylor? I just love the kid. Such a good, tough fighter. And his fight with Regis Prograis. Prograis is tough. Trust me. People writing Prograis off, you're mistaken. Prograis is a really a tough kid. And what a great win that was for Josh Taylor. And Taylor and Ramirez. Ramirez is a handful. He really is. He comes forward. He's got that Mexican style. And, maybe it wasn't as pretty to watch in the amateurs, but in the pro ranks, he's a handful. And, Josh Taylor's going to have his hands full. Two young, undefeated, hungry champions coming together. It's a great fight. And I think the geography of where that fight happens will determine a great deal on some of those close rounds. So I know both promoters are probably lobbying to have it in the UK or in the United States. So it's a huge advantage, though. Whoever has it on their home soil, it's a huge advantage for them. And I know that by personal experience.
But by that, do you just mean like the judges?
I mean, everything. I mean, the food, the travel, the judges, the way is everything. I feel like, when you're in your home soil and your home turf, things don't get sprung on you that, like they do when you're away. The food, it's everything. It's all different. It really is. And I just feel like whoever is able to have that, whether it's in the UK or whether it's in Josh Taylor, where does he actually live? Is he in Scotland or is he in?
Yeah.
He is? Okay, yeah. So if you were able to have it over there, close in that area, if Ramirez is able to have it somewhere in the States, it might sound bad, but I'm going to side with whoever fights on their home soil. I really will. And I think it's going to be a great fight.
Do you have any stories about, going away from home? I've heard stories about people, going to a weigh-in, which is like a mile down the road, but they've taken a taxi. Taxi's taken them like all the way around the city for 45 minutes just to mind games.
Yeah. When I was in the UK and I fought Tony Bellew, I've got a BB in my left eye right here. And they, like 2 days before the fight, they looked at my MRI and they saw the BB. And we had already disclosed it, and it's fine. And my MRIs hadn't changed at all over my 17-year career. But when I get to the UK commission's like, "Oh, this isn't going to work." I'm like, "Okay, well, what are we going to do? My brain health is fine. Everything's good. Well, you got the BB there." I'm like, "I know I got the BB there. We disclosed that before. We sent all that in before, and we all knew that before I got here." Well, we're going to have you see one of our doctors. So they literally drove me all over. I was in the Uber for almost 4 hours. They were taking me all over all these different places, and that was the same day that I had to make the 205 on the Wednesday. So, it was just a bad experience all around for me. It wasn't professional. I felt like it was I don't know. It's already tough enough to beat a guy like Tony in his hometown. It's already going to be tough without all those kind of things going on. But it was just a terrible experience for me.
Well, BJ, obviously, just thank you for your time today. If you just want to tell people where they can find you on your Twitter and your Instagram.
Yeah, my Instagram is BJ Flores Pro. My Twitter is BJ Flores Boxing. And I post stuff, what's going on in the daily life, training camp here and there, post stuff about Jake and post stuff about up and coming fights, predictions I have. One of my favorites I called the Povetkin over Dillian White, almost 4-1. A couple other ones, a couple Caleb Plant fights when he fought Usyk, a couple other fights. I mainly pick underdog fighters that I think have good chances of winning. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's always, good, interesting, fun content. Boxing related most of the time, and that's it.
Did you make any money on the Povetkin one then? Since you say you like to gamble?
Yeah, I bet 500, and I made back about 1850, almost 1900 plus my 500. So I know I should have done a little more. I told Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney was going to put 10 grand on it. I think he put like $5,000 on it, but he made a lot. And he texted me the next day. He's like, "Man, you're a genius." It's like, anytime on the next fight, just please let me know what's going on. But then I picked Lomo over Lopez. So, hey, what do I know?
I was just about to ask that.
No, I was one of the few that told people not to bet on Lopez. People would ask me like, "Hey, does Lopez have any shot?" And I was like, I don't think so. He's never done it at this level before. He's never, been in with a guy like Lomachenko. Lomachenko's got all the experience. I just don't see how he's going to be able to do it in the second half of the fight. But do what you want. But I discouraged like 3 people from betting on Lopez. And, Lopez won. So I got to be careful with my predictions.
No, I agree. I had people from my work, texting me because they know that I'm into my boxing and I have a podcast. They were asking me, but like the smart money when you assessed it kind of said you thought Loma would win. Yeah, I did. I thought Loma would win. And I thought I'd go the distance. I thought Loma might stop him late. And Loma came on nice in the end. He really did, but he started too late. And, 14-month layoff. Teofimo was better than he expected. Wasn't quite what he looked like on film. Once he got in the ring with him, it was a little more difficult. And that happens. And you got to give the kid his props. He won the fight fair and square, and he did what he had to do. So I don't think the problem is with people saying that Teofimo won the fight. He definitely won the fight. But I think people just had a little, big problems with the scorecard. But the right guy won. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, BJ, thank you for your time again. And obviously, good luck to you and Jake on November 28th. And we'll have to get you back on, either before or after the fight. Yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate your time and talk soon. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round